Welcome to the CHCH Newsmakers podcast. I'm your host, Rick Zamperin. If it's making news in Hamilton, Halton, Niagara, across the country, or around the world, rest assured we're going to tackle it right here on Newsmakers. The Toronto International Film Festival is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year, and a number of megastars have already appeared on the red carpet, and more will do so this week. How has TIFF evolved over the years? Is its impact and importance greater than ever? And where does TIFF go from here? Ken Rogers is a professor in the Cinema and Media Arts Department at York University and is a member of Toronto's Film, Television, and Digital Media Advisory Board. And he joins us today on Newsmakers. Mr. Rogers, thanks for joining us today.
Great to be here with you, Rick. Thank you so much.
Launched in 1976 and originally called the Festival of Festivals, which I think is still a great name. How has TIFF become what it is today?
Oh, well, it's really wonderful to be able to witness this milestone for this fantastic festival that originated, as you say, in 1996, established by Bill Marshall and Dusty Cole. And I think, what made Toronto International Film Festival great from the origins was the fact that it was the kind of first really to acclimate and aggregate a wonderful international film from all around the world for this area of North America. And it really became known for that initially. But I think its best turning point really came in the late 70s when it initiated its People's Choice Award, which is something that is still a staple of the festival and is something that really has made it a standout among all of the international film festivals that kind of make taste for the film industry around the world.
TIFF is also in advance of Hollywood's awards season. Does that give it an advantage, or has that given it a boost over the years?
Historically, yes, very much so. You could say that TIFF is at the end of a run of three major festivals that starts at Venice, moves to Telluride, and then kind of culminates with TIFF. And this is where a lot of the major international films, the studios, test out their awards season's films. Many of them premiere here. And TIFF has become known for kind of the place, again, coming back to that people's identity for this particular festival, where you can really get a sense of where box office is going to head, where the kind of general pulse of how an audience reception for one of these films is. It's a much more democratic kind of reception, and many films have been made at TIFF, particularly since the late 90s, early 2000s. You could say that TIFF is responsible for a number of Oscar winners, Golden Globes, etc.
When it comes to the Canadian TV and film industry, how big of an impact has TIFF had on what we're doing here in this country?
Oh, it's been a huge impact for Canadian filmmakers. It's been a launching ground for some of the great Canadian filmmakers, Adam McGoyan, Sarah Polley. In fact, this particular season, Sarah Polley has been honored and recognized with the key to the Toronto, the mayor giving her a key to the Toronto for her incredible work, a great feminist filmmaker. Her films range from Women Talking, Away From Her, I Shout Love. So it's a place where Canadian talent has been showcased. There's always been a nice reserve for Canadian filmmakers, Indigenous filmmakers, CanCon around the board, Canadian animation, which has a great history, documentary. So there's also always been a lot of that space that hasn't crowded out the regionalism of this while it's expanded to be this global festival. And in that sense, it's also become an important place to showcase Canadian talent to the world as this festival has grown and more international folks are here. It's really been a wonderful boon for that.
That's a great lead into my next question about the impact that TIFF has had on our nation and our nation's capability and ability to make great TV and make great films. If TIFF never existed, what would that impact be on what we do here in Canada?
Oh, that's such an interesting question. It's hard for me to speculate in hypotheticals, but I think what I would say is that what has made TIFF so incredible and important is that it's not just a film festival. It's become part of the cultural identity and one of the premier, and made Toronto one of the premier media cities of the world. So it's been a kind of form of soft power, of export power, of expanding the understanding of Canadian culture. And so I think without that, it's really also put Toronto on the map. I wouldn't put any one thing to say, there's so many factors that has kind of made Toronto a global city in the last 50 years. But I would say that, that TIFF, I think I read some data that TIFF is one of the most recognized international brands of a Canadian brands. So it has this incredible impact on identity. It brings the city here. It happens at a time of year when the seasons are exciting. I mean, there you see a clip of kind of the culture and community it creates. It's really become part of the cultural identity of Canada and of the city. So I think in that sense, there's this kind of expanded realm in which TIFF is a cultural event for all the city in the world.
How do you think it's viewed internationally? Now, I'm talking about not just the United States, but, the UK, other places in Europe who are making films. How do they view TIFF?
Well, it's interesting because it's in recent, particularly in the last 15 to 20 years, the conference has become also, it's a place for obviously the buying and selling of films themselves. There's, all the major distributors, agents, agencies, marketing companies are there for that first sort of block, that first weekend, the sales week, where a lot of the deals are made. You have those big international firms all around the world, and their regional distributors come here to kind of see how these films are going to kind of reach out around the world. So it's become kind of a hub for that. I think it's seen as a very international kind of a globally kind of recognized city among all of the kind of general trading partners around film and culture. But I think it's also really helped expand kind of the industry partnerships. In the last 10 to 15 years, many more international co-productions have come out of it. It's kind of TIFF has helped been the spearhead for expanding global international production and making Toronto, Vancouver, and Canada in general like sort of a center for international production, with the attractive traction of global incentives like tax credits, the incentives of the great CMF and telefilm kind of budgeting formats that we have here. So it's kind of, I think TIFF has been part of a larger complex of the expansion of the industry. So much of the industry as production and the work here in Canada has become internationalized. So I think in that sense, it's really kind of been part of the global Hollywood system, in quotes, as it's expanded over the years.
Does that collaboration happen because this is a networking event, and those individuals who are, with studios or with production companies, they come to Toronto and then they realize, the benefits of making film and TV shows here?
Absolutely. I mean, they come here to realize that. And I think what's happened is that, the festival has really been kind of the site where all of these producers and filmmakers have come, and they've realized Toronto is also a very stable, excellent place to shoot and make films. So the film festivals actually opened the gate to kind of production culture here, and post-production, visual effects. There's so many firms here that have kind of been born out of the internationalization movements in the last 50 years stemming from TIFF. So I think TIFF is also a hub where the talent of Canadian talent, the bench depth that we have in all aspects, all subsectors of the creative industries are here, and we kind of showcase that during the festival as well. There's a lot of major industry events, studios host events, and more international production is attracted here because of the festival.
Good example of that is the TIFF Lightbox. It was created in 2010. This is a year-round film hub that people can collaborate in and brings everyone together. That was a brilliant decision, wasn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, the film hub has become an icon of the city. It's a place year-round where kind of the TIFF brand kind of lives on. When people visit the city, there it is. It's a beautiful space. It has amazing theaters. They show content that isn't only commercially driven. They show Canadian content year-round. It's a place for educators. They have an education hub. They have an outreach hub. They do community work. They do so much for the city that isn't just about the film festival. And I think that's part of the kind of ethical heart of the city. Ethical heart, rather, of the festival, is that it's about more than just box office and industry. It's about, the way in which film culture can build community, the way it can open the ears and eyes and to new voices, tell new kinds of stories. And it's been a place where that's happened for so long that I think the Bell Lightbox has given that kind of an emblem and a space and a kind of visible, recognizable place where people can go to share those kinds of experiences.
We're talking about TIFF, its 50th anniversary, its impact on TV and film with Ken Rogers from York University here on the Newsmakers podcast. TIFF, as we know, survived the pandemic. It survived 3 years ago the SAG-AFTRA strike. It keeps on ticking. Is that what does that say about how the TV and film industry not only views the festival, but how effective it is in pushing out its product?
Well, I mean, it's survived some real knocks in the last 5 years. There's been a lot of transition. I mean, this is a more difficult moment, and there's been a lot of disruption in the film and TV industry, not just the labor disruption, but also there's a lot of technological disruption. The streamers have really put pressure on the theatrical window. There's less time for film to kind of get out there and have that kind of intimate box office appeal. Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, these big companies have started to kind of crowd out the market for independent distributors. So it's been a difficult moment. In some ways, you would argue it's a time when the film festivals needs to be more important than ever, in that you need a space for people to kind of commune and remember what is important about theaters. But TIFF has survived throughout that, and as well as the industry, it's been able to adapt kind of to these more formats. It hasn't lost its independent spirit. The heyday of independent film, of course, was in the 90s and the early 10s. And I think what we can hope to witness is a little bit of that independent spirit returning. And there's some signs, there's some early indicators that maybe the box office is set for a resurgence and a return and a recuperation. There's some real hope in terms of the next generation of filmmakers and moviegoers and audiences.
To that end, the StatsCan released a 2024 report on motion picture and what's happening in theaters, and it identified that operating revenue was $1.6 billion in 2024. That's a 12% increase from a couple of years ago. However, theater attendance is down, or was 2/3 of what it was in 2018, which is pre-pandemic. You just referenced the fact that, some people are getting back into theaters. There's a big thrust, I think we saw it at the Oscars and certainly in awards season last season, of actors and directors encouraging people to get back to the theater. Is there ever going to be a day, because, the industry is really fractured in terms of streaming services, watching from home. Is there ever going to be a day where theaters sit empty because there's just too many choices? It's too comfortable at home. It's too convenient.
I mean, I think that was the conventional wisdom, say 5 years ago, that with, the birth of streaming and after COVID, that people could get these experiences at home. I think there's a number of factors that are going to play into this. I mean, one is that there's, I think, a renewed desire for people to kind of want to have that kind of communal experience. And I think a lot of theaters and films are adapting to the idea that they have to create a premier experience. While box office, there's downward pressure on box office revenue overall, things like IMAX have really resurged as a kind of enjoyable experience, another great Canadian invention, IMAX. So that, folks who, want that communal experience are going to plunk the money down to go to have that kind of special experience, D-Box or, vibrating seats or all these kinds of new experiences. And I think that theaters are adapting to that pressure. There's also some signs that in our super saturated media landscape, we're constantly on our phones, we have our devices, we're watching films on our computers at home, that there's, in the younger generations that are kind of digital natives, they, especially Gen Alpha, like the gen that's coming after Gen Z, they love going to the theater. And so there's some indication that there may be a generational swing in the young adult to teen range that's kind of about to enter that kind of precious under 25 theatrical zone of exhibition where a lot of the revenue comes from. I think that there's a lot of excitement that there could be sort of a shift that's coming in the winds.
It's really been fascinating to watch, that is for sure. Let's talk about what is coming up, because I know next year TIFF is launching what is being called The Market. This is a week-long event that is going to bring stakeholders, collaborators together. What is the idea behind this, and what is it going to achieve?
Yeah, I know a little bit about the market, and I think we'll see more next year as it unfolds. But my understanding is that, a lot of this has historically been a sales event where people come to distribute, maybe find gap funding for films that are, partially funded. But for the most part, you're bringing finished product to the stage and for distribution. And it's a kind of distribution event where distribution and marketing are kind of set in place for films that have already been made. So you're showcasing those films and you're getting those films to market globally. I think what may be changing is for this new market, and I don't have the full details on the concept, but we'll see more next year. It's a really exciting concept. It's also a place for deals to be brokered for films that are kind of, in the development stage, an idea. So there might be more things like pitch fests, new independent filmmakers or, media makers who, have an idea can come and try to meet venture capitalists or studios or, producers to sort of make those ideas a reality. So I think it might be kind of a different aspect that is happening before the production process rather than after. And but I think next year will be really exciting to see about how that new initiative will track.
Do you know if it's being done in places like Cannes and Venice as well?
I think informally they have been. I don't know exactly how detailed they are. I think informally they have, but I think TIFF is kind of on the cutting edge of this kind of new development. So I think this might be something that is a new model. I think it also speaks to a point we made earlier about the kind of global and internationalization of production, especially big studio production that often are pictures that are shot in multiple jurisdictions. So they're capturing tax credits and different, that maybe pre, post, and distribution that are in multiple regions in terms of the production process. And so I think those kinds of festivals that bring and maximize people from all over the world would kind of help outline how a film might be able to shoot in 4 locations around the world, capture tax credits, and kind of create these sort of global hubs for production that aren't just sort of nationalized.
We have bodies in this country like the National Film Boards, the Canada Media Fund. Are governments doing enough for the TV and film industries to support it, to boost it up?
I mean, they can always do more. And I think the Canadian government has an amazing track record with things like the CMF, Telefilm, the National Film Board, these kind of, and also a lot of the regional film boards. Each province has its own. And here in Ontario, you have Ontario Creates, you have the local municipal film boards and film offices, and they all kind of work together to promote the industry, to make the industry happen. When you have a big sort of dominant competitor south of the border, you need that kind of government backing to sort of make sure that you're funding local filmmakers, independent filmmakers, to making sure that the industry has enough of its supports in the regulatory domain that it can, make sure that those tax credits, the CAVCO tax credit system we have here, for example, is absolutely critical in the way that both the independent and regional producers can make films and make sure that those films support Canadian voices and Canadian visions and Canadian labor, but also to help attract business externally so that we remain a hub for the global production. We don't want to isolate either. I think our Canadian government has done an amazing job of balancing those needs, but as somebody who's a film lover and a cinephile at heart, I always feel like we could do more. We could do more. So but I think it's been one of the great public systems globally. In line with the UK and Australia and other jurisdictions that have really strong public film systems.
Does TIFF's content market kind of push that across the finish line, or give it an extra oomph?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it comes back to that recognition of, this being the place where, you can get something finished. Again, if you really walk around, like, for example, there's a big annual event that the Canadian Film Centre hosts on Sundays in opening weekend. And it's a place where you see people from all over the world and they're talking about what they do. And it's unions, it's guilds, it's international finance companies, it's banks. It's, the production industry is much larger than just what happens on set or what happens on screen. And so, TIFF provides an opportunity for all of those parties to kind of meet. And the Canadian Film Centre is one of those great, international and national institutions that it provides another space for that to happen. So that's just one example.
Because, and we kind of referenced this earlier, because the market is so fractured in terms of choice for the consumer, do studios or studio heads look at TIFF as a valuable component to, attracting the biggest audience that they can?
I think so, especially when it comes to those big studio films that need the kind of combined, those seeking awards, for example, they need that bit of a theatrical window in order to qualify for many of the awards, like the Oscars or the Globes, but also just so that they are able to get a sort of a pulse on what audience reception will be, kind of quite literally, on site themselves. So I think it's been an important indicator, a beacon. For example, a couple of years ago, I was fortunate enough to sit in on the global premiere of American Fiction, Cord Jefferson's directorial debut, and which ultimately won the People's Choice Award. One of those great indicators for what you're talking about, and went on to win the Oscar for Best. Nominated for 5, won it for Best Adapted Screenplay. But you could feel the energy in that room, the kind of palpable energy that the audience had sort of decided that, like, this was an amazing sort of overlooked film that we wouldn't have heard about. And I think that audience reaction really, it kind of connected to the press, connected to the general distribution, the distributors, to understand that they may have an awards winner here. So I think that kind of effect has been really, it's an example of that effect of, how kind of getting a glimpse of how things are going to be received. Now, in the streaming market, that's been a different game. The theatrical window has shortened. It used to be 90 days back in the day of the early, back in the 70s when TIFF began. You'd have a theatrical run that would go months and months, and that was the main way people would access films. And now you have this shortening window, putting pressure not just on theaters, but also putting pressure on, how are you going to read the reception of a film, and how is it going to do when it ultimately lands on a streaming platform or elsewhere?
I'd like you to take a gaze into your crystal ball and tell me where you see the future of TV and film going.
Such a hard question. There are so many things happening that are both inspiring and concerning, frankly. I think one of the things you have to mention in today's landscape is the development of AI. This has been a huge year for the kind of leaps and bounds in AI, both sort of text to video production, and it's going to impact the workflows and pipelines of production culture across the board, from the creative above the line work to below the line. I'm working on a big initiative on training for Canadians who are working in the visual effects industry. And you just have to talk about AI because it's going to change how people do their work. It's going to create a lot of obsolescence. And so there's a lot of concern from guilds and industries around, job security and, how are we going to train and retrain folks to work in this new landscape? At the same time, there's a lot of promise there. There's a lot of potential. It could be a new tool, a new palette for filmmakers to use. There will be new jobs, hopefully, that emerge from AI so that it won't just be an industry killer. But that's one of the spaces we really have to watch for the next 5 years. And I'm hoping that, coming back to that question around government funding and government support and policy and regulation, that we really come out ahead of the curve on the AI revolution. So that's one space that's really important. But there are others as well.
Could AI be the biggest thing ever for the TV and film industry, either good or bad?
I mean, time will tell. It's really hard to say right now. I think often there's a lot of froth in the early parts of a new technological development, and people love to speculate, and they have the Terminator scenarios and all of that. I think more likely it might resemble something like the shift to sound, in the late 1920s, or the shift to digital in the 90s, where, there was a lot of concern and impact, but ultimately the industry adapted and survived. Like there was a lot of worry in the shift to sound that, live orchestras were going to be put out of work, and that, certain kinds of acting coaches for silent, theatrical production were going to be, when people could speak their lines, there was going to be we have to revolutionize the entire industry. But at the same time, a whole new category of jobs emerged out of that: sound editing, the creative use of sound, and the industry adapted. So I'm hopeful and optimistic that AI will resemble one of those shifts and not be this kind of, absolute dramatic, end of the industry apocalyptic scenario, or, something that changes us forever. I think it will be something that is incorporated and adapted and will be part of the future.
For me at TIFF this year, the John Candy flick, I Like Me, is probably the one that I'm most eager to watch. Are you in the same boat, or is there something else that's catching your eye?
Yes, they had far too few screenings of it.
Yeah.
I got there, it was sold out, so I'm going to have to wait. I haven't seen it myself, but as a big lover of John Candy when I was growing up in Second City, I thought it was just wonderful. Ryan Reynolds, obviously producing this, great Canadian supporter of the industry, international film star. So I've yet to see it. Were you able to, Rick?
No, I haven't seen it. I'm so looking forward to seeing it. It's definitely at the top of the list.
Yeah, everyone wants to see it. I think it's going to have a hearty reception, and I'm sure it will screen on many screens here in Canada for the next months.
Last one for you, and I'll give you a few seconds to think about this, and I'll offer my answer first. What's the best thing that you've watched in the last little while? And I'm gonna offer two things. One from Netflix, Quarterback, which is an awesome behind-the-scenes look at these high-performing athletes in the National Football League doing their thing on and off the field. And the other one is, and this is a cable TV show, Ghosts, that I think is on CBS, is witty, funny. It has me and my whole family kind of glued to the TV, and it's appointment tuning for sure. What about you?
Oh, that's such a great question. Let's see. The best thing I've seen recently. Are you talking about this
I'm talking about anything you've watched recently.
Let's see. I think the thing that I liked most recently was let's see. I'd have to say there's a little show called there was a premiere of a show. I remember it was a show called Mayor of Easton that came out about 2 years ago. It was a lovely little episodic drama about a kind of a detective in a small town. And what I liked about it is it sort of like opened the gate to one-off series that were self-contained in a single in a single show. I hope to see more of those. I think the kind of ongoing. I love the series module. It's somewhere between an extended feature and a dramatic feature and theatrical release that would be a 2-hour segment, and then a series that has like 5 or 6 seasons. And I think something right in the middle there is a great example. More recently, though, on the comedy side, I really loved Hacks. I saw the last season of that recently.
Great show. Yeah, fantastic show.
Gene Smart. One drama and one comedy there.
Yeah. No, Gene Smart is amazing in Hacks for sure.
Gene Smart's great. Yeah.
Thank you so much for the time, your insight, and enjoy the rest of TIFF.
Thank you so much. The first weekend's such a heavy with all the events. It's like now I get to go see some films. So I hope to see you out there in the theater. Thanks so much for giving me the time.
Enjoy it. Ken Rogers is a professor at York University, and thank you for checking out the Newsmakers podcast. And a big thank you to the all-star cast behind the scenes. If you like today's episode, click the thumbs up, hit subscribe, and leave a comment as well. Catch the Newsmakers podcast on chch.com/podcasts and wherever you get your favorite podcasts.